Hey there guys, thanks for joining me back in chapter 5 of the Forgemaster game character masterclass. So, previous chapters we've done a bit more refining on the body, the face, we've got the beard up to scratch now. We've got a few extra details in for the beard, like his little, I forget what the names are, braids or something like that. So now we're going to move on to the rest of the body. I'm actually going to take a look at the trousers, as we need to sort those out, so we haven't touched them yet. So we're going to subtool menu, we're going to turn off the apron so we can see them, and now we're going to see what we can do with these. So it's not going to be a whole lot that we really need to do with them, just want to sculpt in some detail, preferably asymmetrical, and just going to make sure everything's all set up right first of all. So I'm going to take my draw size down on my brush. Going to right click, hold down shift, and turn the intensity down of my smooth tool, my smooth brush, and holding down shift I'm just going to smooth out these areas here. So there's actually a second smoothing algorithm for the smooth brush. There's the normal mode, which you're used to seeing, you just hold down shift and smooth away. There's a second function as well, where if you hold down shift, start smoothing, and then release shift, you see that things get smoothed in a slightly different way. So this is normal smooth, and we release shift, and this is the alternate smooth. This is really good for dealing with poled areas where there are triangles and things. So ideally we really want to get rid of the this kind of section here. We've got a lot of polygons concentrated in one place where we really don't need it. So it's a waste of polygons, and to be honest it's a bit of a mess. But then again, we did smooth his genitals down from that region. So we're going to go back a couple of subdivisions. So you can press Shift D to go back a few. We're going to hold down Control and Shift, and actually just going to change the radius on my brush. Hold down Control and Shift and click on these polygroups. I'm going to invert by Control, Shift and dragging. Just going to rotate around here just until we get to this section. I'm going to remove that. So what we're going to do here is utilize a little function called GoZ. Just going to go to, first of all, geometry. We're going to delete the higher subdivision levels. We're going to go to modify topology and then press delete hidden. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this into Max or Maya, depends which one opens up first. Going to go up to the top of the tools palette, and we'll see we've got this GoZ button here, and see what we can export it to. Doesn't look like I've got it set up yet, so if you guys haven't got GoZ set up, then we press continue on here. It's going to search to see if we've got Cinema 4D installed. We don't. It's going to see if we've got Max installed, but in my case I do. It's just not installed in the default directory, so I need to go ahead and point it to the right place. So we've got Max, pretty sure that's the exe file there. There we go. So it's going to ask, once it's found Max, it's going to ask if it can install the GoZ plugin for Max. I'm going to press install, which is going to go ahead and install it. It's going to ask if we've got Maya. Again, I do. Got 2014, and I can never remember where Maya actually is. I think it's in bin, and Maya. There we go, Maya.exe. Press open. Press install to install that in Maya. I don't have Modo, so not installed. I do have Photoshop, and it's picked that up because installed to the default directory. Let's install it into Photoshop, and I don't have Sculptress installed, so not installed in there. And now we get to choose what we're going to use. So I'm going to choose Max because I find it a lot easier to do this sort of thing in Max. So we'll see what happens there. Now it's going to take a while to boot up Max, so I'm just going to pause the video. Okay, so we've got Max open here, and it's giving us a wireframe and perspective view of our trousers, because that's the subtool we had selected. See, we've got a lot of triangles on the top here. That doesn't matter, but if you wanted to, you could always, you know, sort of delete these out and start connecting up some edges and tidy it up a bit. I'm not going to bother, as we don't need to. But we are going to fix up this section. So I'm going to change the viewport to shaded, just to get rid of those annoying shadows. Controls in Max. This isn't a Max tutorial per se, but I'll go over what I can. You can hold down the Alt key and hold down the middle mouse button, which will allow you to orbit the camera. Mouse wheel allows you to zoom in. Let's see what else we've got. You can hold down Control and middle mouse button to pan, and I think Control and Alt and moving the mouse backwards and forwards while holding down the middle mouse button, that will move your viewport in and out. So what we want to do is patch up this hole with some nice quads, as if we did a close holes button in ZBrush, it would basically just create a load of triangles. So to do that, we're going to, we've got our trousers selected already, so we need to come up to the modify panel over here, and you see that it's actually an editable poly. Clicking on that will give us a few options just below. We want to select the edge, the edges here, so I'm going to click on this button, and I'm going to click on this edge, hold down Control and click on the other edge, and then going to grab the move tool over on the left here, top left, and this will give us our little gizmo. I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to drag down on the Z axis, and that is going to extrude another edge from this point. And from here I'm going to go into the vertex mode, and I'm going to select target weld, and I'm going to click on this vertex and then click on this vertex here, which is going to attach it to it, and same on the other side. I'm then going to go back to edge mode, and I'm going to hold down Shift again and click and drag. Then go on to vertex mode, target weld, click on the vertex, click on the one that I want to attach it to. Same on the other side, again back to edges, hold down Shift and drag down, edge mode, target weld, grab this, put it there, target weld that to there, and finally I'm going to target weld this point to here, which will join that up. So now we need to do is select this vertex and move it back using the Y-axis constraint, and then the same with this vertex here. And that's the hole patched up using some nice quads, so now we shouldn't get any pinching or anything like that. So we're going to just click on Editable Poly again to put it back to the entire mesh. We're going to go back to the Go Z button up here and then press Edit in ZBrush. And that's going to send the new file, the new mesh over, and we're going to get our editable mesh inside ZBrush with the hole patched up, as it will replace the trousers. Okay, so now back in ZBrush. We don't really need any polygroups on this, as they're a little bit messed up anyway. So we're going to go to polygroups and press Group Visible. I'm actually going to turn on solo mode, and here I'm going to make a few quick changes, and I'm going to set up some polygroups just to make things easier should we need them. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, and I'm going to click the brush selection menu and select Lasso, and I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and drag the lasso around there to select just the top section and miss a spot by the looks of things. I'm going to invert that, so Control, Shift and drag. Again, I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and right click, so Control, Shift and Alt, and I'm going to select this entire front section here to remove that. Invert again, and once again remove the bits which you don't actually need. Let's tidy that up. I'm going to press Group Visible, and I'm going to invert. Sorry, unhide everything, so that's Control Shift and then click in the background. Now I'm going to separate off the legs. So we've got symmetry selected, so we only need to select one side. I'm going to select it up until the groin. And I'm going to invert so we can tidy it up. I want to get this in there. So basically we're making some underpants really. Or boxer shorts, or whatever it is you want to call them. So we're going to invert and then press group visible. So now we have 3 polygroups. And they're going to come down to just about the knee and do the same here. I think that's about right, that's what I wanted. I'm going to invert that, tidy up this. Invert again, then press group visible. Okay, so now we've got these divided into polygroups. This could be handy a bit later on. I might use it to do some UV maps or something like that. But for the time being, that's quite alright. It's there if we need them. And actually I'm just going to do these little holes down the bottom as well. So I'm going to hold down Control Shift, select down the bottom, and group visible. Let's do it again to make sure it's definitely a different colour, so it's easier to tell. And there we go. So that's all the polygroups that we might need selected. So let's see what we need to do with these. Let's turn off solo mode. So overall, at this sort of stage we don't really need to do too much. I think what we'll probably end up doing first is just kind of bulk them up a bit, make sure they sort of overhang at the bottom above the boots. So I'm going to grab the move tool and I'm just going to sort of pull out a bit of an overlap, so it's kind of resting on top of the boots where it's tucked in. And just pull out the sides of the trousers, so around the knees, be a bit baggy there. So this isn't going to be anything final, it's just kind of sculpting in a little bit of a guide for us. As we're going to be doing this asymmetrically, which will add a bit more detail and interest to the section. Also we might need to bulk out the groin a little bit. Going to use a standard brush for doing that. Smooth things in a little bit. Notice we don't want to get too overboard there. Have a bit of sag. Let's just turn off polyframe. Have a bit of sag around the back. And that sort of thing here as well. So again, this is symmetrical at the moment, but we're going to be correcting that when we go up to subdivision levels. So we need to grab some reference of loose trousers in boots. So I'm just going to show you what I've got for that. So possibly some of the best examples which I found is actually military clothing. So not fantastic reference, as none of these are Viking blacksmiths, but you can get an idea of the way that they overlap on the boots. We're probably going to make them look a lot heavier, so the military ones are probably a lot more applicable to this. So let's, oops, wrong one. Let's see what we've got. So let's see if we can find any more. Let's see if we can do military clothing. Not a whole lot of difference really, but okay. Alrighty, so I think we're probably going to have to use what we've got. That might be useful. But everything else is refusing to work, so I'm just going to drag these back over onto my main monitor. And just going to use them for reference on the way that the clothing's just the sort of creases and things are distributed across the surface. So we're going to go into transform, we're going to turn off symmetry, or you can press X on the keyboard, And we're going to divide these, so you can press Control D. I'm just going to use my quick keys for it. I'm going to go back down to the second subdivision level, and I'm going to use the standard brush. I'm going to turn the lazy step down, so that's I don't get any sort of raised dots. You can do that by going into Stroke, Lazy Mouse, and then dropping the lazy step down. And here we just want to sort of start blocking in a few ideas of where the wrinkles in the knees and things are going to be. It's important to remember that when we actually take this down to a game resolution, these wrinkles will only barely be geometry. The rest of it will be captured with normal maps, which will capture the rest of the detail. So I'm putting things in, smoothing them down afterwards pretty quickly, as we don't want them sort of too sharp. But when we subdivide again anyway, we'll get a lot of that smoothed out for us as well. So remember, you don't want to make the creases too deep. When you can hold down Alt and you'll sort of indent the area rather than bring it out. When you do hold Alt, remember that there's meant to be a leg underneath, so it's not going to be too deep, but it does depend on how loose the trousers are. If you find things are being a little bit too intense after fiddling with the lazy step, you can always turn the Z intensity down on the standard brush. Playing with the lazy step will affect sort of the intensity of the brush. It'll actually increase it, so keep that in mind. So what I'm doing is just smoothing things back, just putting in a few larger wrinkles. Now, I'm not sure whether going into a huge amount of detail is particularly necessary on the trousers, because he's going to have an apron on which is going to cover the trousers a fair bit. However, in a game, we may well have scenes where his apron is removed and you'll be able to see the rest underneath. So I'd rather have the detail there and not need it than need it and not have it, as that would be a whole load of extra work if we decided that was putting this character in the game and later on the designers decide to think, well, you know, we can have his apron off at this point and he can be wearing a shirt instead. We'd have to come in, and not only would we have to create a shirt anyway, but we'd also have to sculpt in details for the trousers, which would already be there in the first place. We'd have to add more texture to them, and then we'd have to rebake out all the texture maps, normal maps and everything to take that into account. Not to mention possibly modify the geometry if it's not accurate enough. So again, I'd rather have things there and not need them than need them and not have them. So I try to preempt as much as I can. Not to mention doing wrinkles and things in clothing is actually quite enjoyable. So it's starting to run out of resolution here. Let's try and get a few more major details in. So we're going to jump up the subdivisions momentarily. I mean, if you've run out long before I have, then go ahead and jump up anyway, because we'll be carrying this on a higher subdivision level. So again, just referring back to my my reference, trying to figure out sort of what else I'd need to put in there. And obviously when you're standing up, there aren't that many wrinkles in sort of the upper area of the trousers, as gravity pulls it down, and obviously the weight of the trousers is what creates the wrinkles towards the bottom. But sometimes it's just interesting to put a few wrinkles in there, especially around on the sides. You know, depending on how the trousers are put together, I imagine these will just be sort of stitched down the middle. So you might have some strain on the seams. After all, it's not exactly skinny, so for instance, there's this section here which I'm quite happy to have sort of a fat fold kind of peeking over, so I'm actually going to play that up a little bit and sort of indent it, and then I'm going to sort of create a bit of a fold underneath here. So let's go ahead and jump up a subdivision level. You can press D on the keyboard. Just carry on sort of enhancing what we've got. Fine having a little bit of a lip around the top there for where there's a hem or something like that. So let's just have a look around the back. Let's just sort of enhance these around at the side here. There's not really much to say. All I'm doing is using the standard brush to bring out a few more folds and smoothing them back again. Yeah, holding down shift. Just using the standard shift function, not using the alternative one. Don't spend too long in one place, just jump around. That way you'll sort of catch things if you miss them, and you tend to get a bit more of an overall even distribution of detail. If you spend too long on one area, you'll actually get tired, and then you'll see another area and you'll think, oh god, I've got to detail that next. So just dart around, build it up as much as you can over time. It will save you time, and you end up with something that looks a little bit more unified as a whole. Don't be afraid to put some deep cuts in as well. So they have some nice deep folds on there, especially around the tops of the boots. Cool, let's subdivide again. Now we can start sort of smoothing these out a bit. Start sharpening them up. As you can see, they're starting to get a little bit lumpy. So I'm going to grab the polish brush, just polish, not H polish, and I'm just going to sort of drag it around the underside of these. In fact, I think I might get the H polish brush, I need a little bit more of an effect on it. I'm just going to sort of sharpen up these creases, add a bit more of a pinched edge to them, and we can probably use pinching a bit as well, just to enhance a few more. As you can see, it's starting to look a bit more sort of natural there after polishing down a few of the creases. So we're going to continue sort of building this up and sort of sharpening out a few more contours. So the idea is to make it look like the creases are sharp, not the actual trousers themselves. So I'll flatten out a few bits, sharpen up a point and a crease rather, and it will give the effect that the material has a bit of weight to it and a bit more of a smoother surface. So I'm not a fan of just using the standard brush on its own. It's probably one of the brushes which I use the least these days, but it still has its uses every so often. So smooth down a few of the extra lumps and bumps. Just using a combination of smooth and H polish. Using the H polish as well, it kind of helps sort of indicate the flow of the fabric, as you don't end up with so many lumpy parts. So it looks a lot more natural. So I'm just grasping at straws as to what to explain really, as you know, you're watching this in real time, and I think you've probably got the idea by now, but Okay, let's just smooth that back out a little bit more. Alrighty, so let's go up another subdivision level. Everything's starting to look a lot smoother, a lot tidier now. So let's just sharpen up a few edges. So I'm actually going to use the pinch brush and drag it along some of the edges here, just to kind of accentuate them. Add sort of an extra level to the wrinkle. And as you can well imagine, the pinch brush pinches things together. So it's pretty good for doing folds, and creases, and wrinkles and things like that. So it looks like I kind of need to enhance this little section here. So I'm grabbing the standard brush and I'm just going to drag across it and add a bit more depth to this section. Smooth it out again. And drop the draw size a bit more, actually increase it a bit more than that. And I'm just going to put a lip along here and smooth it in. Okay, so I think that's gonna do for the wrinkles and things. Probably just do a little bit more of an overall smooth, just to take out a few of the extra lumpy bits. I think largely that's alright for now. Let's try a different material. Yeah, it's all good. I think that's pretty much what we're after here. I might just use H-polish on this section just to get a bit more of a impact there. Okay, so it's going to do us. Call that a day on that one. Okay, so let's go about sort of adding in a few extra bits and pieces. Ideally I'd like to put a belt on him. So this is where we're going to use our insert mesh brushes. I'm going to have to go to subtool menu and I'm going to have to duplicate this. I'm actually going to go to geometry, drop down a couple of subdivision levels and then delete higher and lower and then hide the original trousers. And the reason for doing this is that insert mesh brushes require a mesh to work on top of. So we're going to go to IMM curve and we're going to go press M and we're going to get a wide strap. Now this can be a little bit weird to work with, so I'm going to drag that over to the side and then I'm going to hold down shift, which should wrap it around the rest of the geometry. It's a little bit on the thin side. So I'm just going to turn off dynamic brush size and I'm going to put the brush size up a little bit more because it's directly tied to the brush size. So drag off the side and hold down shift and that will wrap around. Yeah, definitely not. Let's try it from this angle. If we go to solo mode so we don't have anything else to deal with, let's just drag it around here. No, definitely not right. Getting there. Got to find the right point with which to do this, so let's just do it there. There's a little bit of sag on it. Kind of okay with that maybe. See if we can just get a little bit more accurate. Let's turn the focal shift up a bit, or down a bit, sorry, so it's a bit close to the actual brush size. Don't know if that's affecting it, so we'll find out. That's better. Let's make it a bit bigger. See if I can remember what point I dragged that out from. Bit bigger, increase the brush size. You can do that with the square bracket keys on the keyboard. Drag out from here, hold shift. Again, it needs to be quite a chunky belt. Not quite that chunky. Mostly trial and error this. So just drag off, hold down shift. That's it, that'll do. Now, rather annoyingly, you do have sort of this section here where you got these 2 points meeting. So I'm going to try doing that from the front, see if I can get the same results. Now it's going to wrap around, let's try a slightly different view angle. Nope. This is the most annoying part of using insert mesh brushes. Never really been able to tell how they're going to come out. So I'm going to work with this because it's largely in the position that we want. So if we put our cursor over it, we'll get this little blue section, and we'll get a red line as we start to come out. So, oops, sorry, you don't want the red line appearing. You want to use the blue section. So when it turns blue, that means that you can edit the curve. So you can actually take this curve and manipulate it, and hopefully we'll be able to get something which resembles what we want with a bit of trial and error. I think that'll do it. So let's get this split off. If we go to split and then press split to parts and press OK. There were two meshes in that. There was the trousers and then the belt. So it's split the separate parts apart. And here we can delete these trousers now, really. They're no longer relevant. So let's go ahead and delete those. Press OK. Let's turn our other trousers back on. Turn off solo mode. And let's edit this belt to fit this. So I'm going to go to dynamic brush again. Just turn on dynamic there. I'm going to use the move brush. And I'm going to turn on transparency. And now we're just going to move this belt into a more fitting position outside of his body, or outside of the trousers. So I might do some fun things with this belt and add a few pouches and things to it. Probably around the back, because you won't be able to see it with the apron there. So I'm going to add some pouches and possibly a belt buckle. Well, definitely a belt buckle. Probably won't do the stereotypical belt buckle. I quite like the idea of it being a chunky, maybe a wolf's head or something like that. That'd be quite cool. And that belt buckle will then cover up this seam in the middle. So there we go. Let's turn off transform. We've got our belt. If we have a look at the poly frame, you can see that we don't have this creased. Now, if we divide this, we're going to end up with a very soft belt, which might be the effect that you want, but I want it quite chunky. So I'm going to undo that. And now here I'm going to go to crease, and because each of the edges here between this edge and that edge is basically a 90 degree angle, we're actually going to turn this C tolerance down to about 80, which is just below 90. Now if we press crease, it's going to crease at the point of where any polygon diverging off from another is above 81 degrees. So now we can divide this and it stays nice and sharp around the edges. So chunky is the name of the game, although we do have a bit of an issue there by the looks of things. Let's have a look, see why. Not quite sure why. Interesting. It's gone to solo mode. It says only those ones there. Let's just tweak these vertices. Let's just increase the angle on them. And then we'll press crease again, which fixed that. Let's divide it and see if we got any problems anywhere else. Yeah, we've got a similar problem down here. That means that the angle isn't enough in this area, so it's definitely not an 81 degree angle. So in which case we increase the angle by just moving the polygons out. Press crease again, let's fix that. And now we can move the polygons back so it doesn't look strange. Okay, so let's divide. Let's turn off polyframe. And that looks hard edged all the way around. That's great. It's going to turn off solo mode. You can see we've got a belt in there now. This guy's starting to come together. So it's going together quite well now. Quite happy with that. So now we have a belt in place. Let's jump back to the trousers. Just hold down Alt and click on it. And let's just add a few extra wrinkles which are relative to the belt. So a little bit of bunching above the top. A little bit of pulling underneath. Just smooth this out. Let's keep the bunching overlapping slightly. Could also use the inflate brush to kind of add a bit of bulge over the top of here. But the standard brush is doing a good enough job. Just even this up a little bit more. Not sure why I did that. Just testing out an idea. Didn't work. Grab the polish brush again, H polish. Sharpen up the edges a little bit. Just kind of keep it in keeping with the rest of the idea of the material. And decide if these are going to be cotton or leather. I imagine they'll probably be cotton or some sort of fabric rather than leather. Okay, so we have a belt, or the rudimentary startings of a belt. We've got some folds there in the trousers. So I think we'll probably leave the trousers and the belt there for now. We'll come back to that a little bit later on. And we're going to start getting the rest of it up to scratch. We'll probably retopper those boots when we get down there, which I think we'll probably do next. So that's going to do for this chapter, I think. Yeah, that'll do for now. So join me in the next chapter, guys. We're going to move on to the boots. We'll get those retopologized because, to be honest, I'd rather get that done sooner rather than later. We'll then move on to the gloves and the apron, and then we'll start doing a detail pass on everything, which will we'll start adding a lot more surface details, skin pores, scars, more facial elements, wrinkles, all the good stuff, all the stuff which is really enjoyable to do. So thanks for joining me in this chapter, guys. Hope your projects go well, and see you soon.